everybody, welcome back to part 5 and the penultimate episode of the Tamiya 1/48 scale F-35 Lightning II build. In this episode I want to get all the airframe elements that I didn't manage to get done last time, get those finished. So we'll be starting off with the undercarriage, then the weapons bay doors. I've got the exhaust nozzle to build and fit, and also finish off the cockpit, and I'm going to be putting together and fitting the pilot into this model. It's not something that I often do on my aircraft builds. So there's a lot to be getting on with, so we'll get over to the bench and make a start this week. Okay, so I'm starting this week with adding some detail and finishing off the undercarriage legs that I started last time. And you can see that this is the port leg. I've already added some detail to it. And the brake line arrangement is quite complex on the F-35. You can see we've got at least 3 pipe runs here, and it's so complicated that this is still just an approximation really of what you can see on the aircraft. Some of the pipe work is actually related to some of the actuators and sensors on the leg, but it looks something like that. The most distinguishing feature is this triple feature here, this triple set of pipes with these 2 brackets on the torque links here at the back. And that's been made from some 0.3mm copper wire. It's actually plastic coated copper wire in white, but it doesn't matter, any sort of thin wire will do, including lead wire. So we'll make the starboard leg up in the same sort of way, and I've got this one now as a reference to try and match the starboard leg to that one. So the first thing to do is to make some brackets up, and this is one here, and that's made from this very thin strip, styrene strip. So to make the brackets I just mark up the strip with a sharp needle. In this case I'm looking for a triple bracket, so 3 pipes will go through this one. And then I just open that mark up with a 0.3mm drill. In this case, this is a circuit board drill. And then once you've got the 3 holes marked up, we can cut the bracket off. I've got 5 of these all together on the port leg. Sometimes you have to do this a few times before you get a decent result. And what you're looking for is to get the holes obviously in line and at the right sort of distance apart as well. And once you're happy that you've got that, they can just be trimmed off. So you can see how small these brackets are, but I think it's worth adding them rather than just gluing the wire straight onto the leg. It just adds that little bit of spacing that you can see here on this leg. So I'll just cut 3 lengths of wire we're going to be working with. 3 decent lengths of wire. It's surprising how much you use when you're doing this, and the legs, as you can see, are quite long, so make sure you've got enough. You don't want to be getting to the point where you've glued some of these brackets on and find that you've not got enough wire to complete the pipe run. And having done that, just straighten it out and we have to attempt to thread these through the brackets. So this is a 0.3mm hole, obviously, and the wire is 0.2. I think I mentioned at the beginning of the video that it was 0.3. It's not, it's 0.2. So it goes through the bracket quite easily. And I use super thin super glue just to tack that bracket into position. And then we want the next one slightly further up. The trick now is to get the brackets onto the leg, and the lower one fits right at the end of the torque link. I'm using thin CA to attach these brackets to the legs. If you try to use styrene cement, so say thin Tamiya cement, it'll just disintegrate the bracket because you've drilled holes in it and weakened it, and it doesn't work. Obviously CA doesn't actually melt the plastic in any way, doesn't react with the plastic, so it's much safer to use that, and you get a quicker bond as well with it. Okay, so I'll get those primed and painted now, along with the wheels, and we can get them together. There's a few decals to fit to them as well onto the legs, so we'll do those and get them fitted onto the airplane. The legs have had a coat of satin white here, and actually it's just Mr. Hobby base white, their primer white. And I discovered when I was doing the weapons bay that it's a really nice satin finish, nice and smooth. So that's what I've done here, and then just applied a weathering wash to it with some Tamiya accent colour, dark brown, and I've just given that a clean up. I don't want them to look too dirty. The photographs I've got, the aeroplane, show that the undercarriage legs are fairly clean. So just to highlight the detail really, rather than to give an impression that the leg is dirty. Now I want to pick out the pistons and struts and the oleo here down at the bottom. And for that I'm going to use some bare metal foil, some Chrome Effect bare metal foil. That's this, the new improved chrome version. Bare metal foil burnishes down really nicely with a wooden toothpick like this. You can also use a cotton bud, and that gives it a bit of a polish at the same time. It's sometimes tricky to get bare metal foil started. It doesn't have a lot of tackiness to it, so sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle to get it to attach. Okay, so that's the bare metal foil done. I'll just pop the decals on now. So the decals go on fairly easily, they're one piece. And I've just applied those with some microset, and I've just treated them to some microsol just to get them to conform around the leg. This is actually one of my favourite parts of an aircraft build, where you're building these little assemblies to add to the airframe. It's an area that I like to spend quite a bit of time on. I think it's easy to skimp on the work that you do on these assemblies because you've got the airframe together, all painted up, decals on as I did last week, and it can be tempting just to rush ahead and not give these the attention that they deserve. So I've given those some microsol, as I said, and while that's drying I'll just finish off the wheels. So these have been painted with the satin white, and I've given them a light wash with the panel line accent, the dark brown. And now I'm going to mask them off, and to do that I've got the alpha cutter that I'll use to cut the circle template. I think I mentioned or showed you last week these from Premium Hobbies, that the pre-cut circles, and these are okay for any diameter below that the alpha cutter can cope with, so around about a centimetre really. That's the minimum sort of diameter that you can cut with an alpha cutter. The nose wheel is slightly smaller than is possible to cut with an alpha cutter. So these pre-cut circles are a real time saver, and obviously they're very accurate. You get a nice circle with them. Okay, so I'll get over and get these painted. I'll be using some rubber black and some pure black just to add a bit of wear to the tyres. So that didn't take long. We've got the tyres painted. So in the end, I painted them tyre black. I forgot all about that colour. And just went round the treads with a lighter mixture. I just added a little bit of German grey into the mixture for the treads. So it just adds a little bit of contrast. It's very difficult. You won't pick it up on the camera, I don't think. They'll just look uniformly black, but they're not. Okay, so they've come out okay. I'll get the aeroplane over and we can get them fitted now. The legs are a really nice fit. The pegs are really deep. They go right the way into the spar structure that we fitted when we were putting all the armaments bay together. So it's a really strong construction for the legs. And to strengthen them even more, we've got the retraction struts. So the undercarriage doors are a really nice and a really strong fit, and that's because the part that I glued there is actually one of the undercarriage bay bulkheads. So all the hinges and the door itself is integral to that bulkhead, and all you've got to do is glue that on, and you've got a really nice strong fit of the part, and it also lines everything up properly as well. These are the nose gear doors, and we have a couple of decals to fit here as well. These need to conform to some raised rivet detail on the inside of the door. So I'm just giving them a coat of microsalt just to try and bed them down over that detail. Okay, so these are the weapons bay doors, which I'm going to do next. I've already painted these in the fuselage colour on the outside, but I've got to do the insides yet. And to do that, I want to match it to the armament bay, where I primed the assembly in black and then overcoated in the satin white. So I'll do the same with these so that they all match up. You'll notice that on this one I've broken the hinge, goes here, and I haven't bothered repairing it until now because I would have just broken it off again. So we'll repair that now, and hopefully it'll stay intact until we get the thing fitted to the aeroplane. I had forgotten these parts, which are for the central weapons bay doors. And the complexity of the kit comes really from trying to organise the assembly of all these bits and pieces so that you can paint them all as one, or in one session. Otherwise you'd be backwards and forwards with the airbrush, filling it up, cleaning it, changing colours. These pieces, apart from the hinges, are also the mountings for the missiles that go inside the weapons bay. So there's no doubt that these doors are really tricky to fit. The design of them is such that they'll only actually go into position one way, and it's a case of kind of wiggling the door around until you find that place, and then it just clicks into place. So you just have to be patient with it, and eventually it will go. So with the underside of the aircraft done, I'm going to go back to the cockpit. I did the majority of the cockpit tub, if you like, in the first program of this series. But now I'll finish it off by building the ejector seat and the instrument panel. And for a change, I'm going to put the pilot in the F-35. It's not often I do that with my aircraft models, but I will for this one. And he's a little bit more interesting because he's obviously got the special helmet that F-35 pilots wear, and that's reproduced in the Tamiya kit. I'm just positioning the seat so that when I glue the arms onto the pilot, I can make sure that the hands are in contact with the controls. Okay, so I'll get all these sub-assemblies painted, then we can do some decals for the instrument panel. There's one or two for the seat as well, and then we'll get it all together on the aircraft. There's quite a bit of raised detail for these decals to snuggle down onto. So I've put some microsol on those. The Tamiya decals react well to microsol, unlike the Caracal ones. If you remember last time when I was doing the airframe decals, I avoided microsol on those. But you need it for this type of work where there's all the raised buttons and so on the instrument panel. So 2 or 3 applications probably to get this to work. Okay, so the next step is to give these black pieces of the seat a bit of a dry brush. Otherwise they just look a bit flat without it. So I'm going to use some rubber black to start with. This is a very dark grey. So hopefully it will just bring out the edges of the detail in the Tamiya parts. And if we need any more, we'll be able to just add a little bit of grey to the colour. But we'll take it in stages just to see how we get on. Rubber black usually does the trick. Again, this is going to be difficult to pick up on camera because the effect is quite subtle. The liner there, the Tamiya panel liner, was just giving me an outline of the straps on this bottle, which goes behind the seat. And I'll just fill the rest in with some Tamiya lacquer black, flat black. So I think that's quite a nice seat straight out of the box. No doubt there'll be some aftermarket resin ones, but I'm happy enough with that. So we'll get that into the aeroplane, and we'll also make up the instrument panel. The decals that I fitted yesterday have dried nicely. Settle down over all that detail, so we'll get that done as well, and that'll finish the cockpit off, apart from painting the pilot and putting him in. Something I'd forgotten is this centre on the underside of the nose. And in one of the previous episodes, I'd just attached the transparency. so that I could paint it along with the rest of the fuselage. And I'd forgotten to put the actual sensor equipment inside, so I'll do that now. This was only attached with some PVA, so it came away fairly easily. To add a little bit of sparkle to the lenses in the sensor, I've used some bare metal foil again, and I've just cut a couple of discs of foil using a hole punch. And I'm assuming that these are some sort of mirror. This is Tamiya modelling wax, and it's just to polish the transparencies up a little bit. So next up we'll do the exhaust nozzle. I was wondering why we got 6 of these petals. See, I've painted 6. And it's just that they're moulded on 2 identical sprues. So they come in 2 pairs of 3. So that's an unusual colour. We've got Tamiya mixes again working here. This is a mixture of brown and metallic grey. The insides are just white, but I've put some jet exhaust, some Vallejo jet exhaust in there as well, just for a bit of exhaust staining. And then the outside, these edges of the petals here, are another Tamiya mix of light grey and metallic grey. So these are the navigation lights for the wingtip, and because of the way that these lights are formed, there's a bulge for the lens, top and bottom, with a frame all the way around it. So it's not really possible to mask that off for painting the frame. So I've just been round with a very fine brush to paint the frame in the airframe colour. And I've also painted the tab that Tamiya provide to locate the light. I've painted that in clear green, and I'm hoping that that'll be just enough to reflect through the lens once the lamp's into place. And there's enough of the red just reflecting through the bulged lens, so that looks nice. Okay, so the last job for this episode, this penultimate episode, is to get the pilot painted. Okay, so that's it, it's all done. And after the painting, I've just gone over the figure with some panel line colour. This is the dark brown that I've been using on the rest of the airframe. And it's just picked out some of the sculpting on the figure. So that's all right. I don't often do figures, but it's a nice change to paint one. Okay, so that's all good. I'll leave it there for this week, and we can get this finished off in the next episode. Okay, so that's it. We're all done for this week. Next time, for the final episode, I'll be finishing off all the weapons that I started. I think a couple of episodes ago I built the pylons and so on. They're all ready to be painted and get the decals on. Then we can get them fitted onto the aeroplane. I'll be fitting the aircraft out in the full weapons loadout. So I've built all the elements from the Tamiya kit, so we'll get those fitted next week. The other thing, just to finish the aeroplane off, will be to build the canopies, and Tamiya provide two options for us, an open and a closed canopy. They provide two canopies so that you can swap them around. So I'll build both and see what they look like in the different configurations. So that'll be coming up next week, so hopefully you'll be able to join me in another few days' time for the final part of the build. In the meantime, look after yourselves, everybody. Stay safe, and I'll see you in another few days' time. Bye for now.